Something very, very special is happening in 2 days. Over the course of this month, Nintendo has been re-releasing some of their best Wii games on the Wii U eShop. Super Mario Galaxy 2 is a winner, as is Punch-Out, but they have definitely saved the best for last. Metroid Prime Trilogy. But DQP, aren't there more important releases coming out this month? Like Resident Evil HD? So let's delve into the 3 games in detail. The first Metroid Prime is up there with my favorite games of all time. I'm serious. Deus Ex, Paper Mario, Metroid Prime. It is, in my opinion, the pinnacle of the entire Metroid series. The pinnacle of the Metroidvania genre. The pinnacle of non-RPG gaming, even. That's how freaking good this game is. There are many reasons that this is one of my favorite games of all time, but I think the biggest reason is how the game presents its story through the world. I'm not going to give a story synopsis of any kind because I want you to experience it blind, as I did when I was young. That's really the best way to go into Metroid Prime. One of the chief mechanics of the series is the Scan Visor, which lets Samus scan her environments and learn details about biology and lore. You can go through the entire game while only using the scanner a few times, but you would be seriously missing out. There are several entire stories about a fallen civilization, a group of pirates descending into madness, a polluted, corrupted planet crying for help. Again, you can go through the entire game without even paying attention to any of that, but the way it's irresistibly placed there, and the way it provides context for your exploration, it makes the world feel rich and worth exploring in ways that very few games can do today. And then there's the game's atmosphere, which is hauntingly beautiful. The game immediately sets the tone with the creepy frigate in the opening, full of dead bodies and scans detailing several experiments gone horribly wrong. But then it drops you into areas like the Ice World, Phendrana Drifts. I'm sorry, but I'm a real sucker for ice worlds in games, and Phendrana Drifts is hands down the best of the bunch. It just nails the beauty of winter, with the soft snowfall and the icy lakes, and... There's so much Metroid Prime gets right, and I'm not even touching on the incredible boss fights, or the brilliant Metroidvania level design that just funnels you right into the satisfying moments, or the sequence breaks that super hardcore players can do and I can't, or the super scary Metroids that get right up in your face and oh my god, it's on my face, get it off, get it off, get it off, get it off! That scared me so much as a kid, and no other game has been able to scare me that much since maybe Outlast. And even then, I love this game so much, guys. It's really one of my all-time faves. So, with that all said, let's move on to Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, the darkest game of the entire franchise. And it's pretty good, I guess. Many have described Echoes as being Metroid's Majora's Mask, and I suppose it's pretty hard not to see why. I mean, it's certainly a lot more difficult than the first one, but it doesn't feel as depressingly deep as Majora's Mask was. It's a basic light world, dark world setup. And yeah, when I say basic, I mean really basic. There's a cool mechanic at the beginning of the game where the dark world damages Samus whenever she steps out of these light barriers. And I really liked that. It gave me the sense that this horrific world was really kind of acidic and dangerous and full of pure, volatile evil. It forced you to plan out your routes really carefully. It made fights a lot more harrowing, especially that first one with the sandworms, where one of the few precious barriers you have might get knocked out. That was really nerve-wracking. But after that, you get the Dark Suit, which lets you go anywhere. That's boring. The two worlds aren't very different after that. And aside from an area that you get to in the last third, the worlds aren't nearly as interesting as they were in the first game. There's a brown desert, and then there's another brown desert, and then there's a brown swamp, and then there's the Sanctuary Fortress, which is actually really cool, but it's only one world out of many brown and purple ones. The scans aren't as interesting, the lore isn't as interesting, the enemies aren't as interesting. Echoes just isn't as interesting on a whole. Don't get me wrong, it does have its good bits, and the gameplay and level design by themselves are worthy of the Prime heritage, but it's just not as compelling as the other two games. But thankfully, the third game, Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, picks up the slack and is actually really great. Not as great as the first, but still a hell of an experience. The first thing I noticed when I first played Corruption back in middle school was that it sure was a lot more cinematic than the first two games. There's voice acting, there's a lot more cutscenes, the camera sometimes looked like Vaseline's been smeared on it, and I can't say that I really like that approach. The first game really told its story through the world, and I didn't like that it was moving away from that towards cutscenes. Now, don't get me wrong, it's definitely not as bad as Other M, but, well, I guess that's another topic for another video. That being said though, the story is still pretty great. It's got great characters, especially the rival bounty hunters that you encounter. I'm not going to spoil why they're so interesting, you'll just have to see that for yourself. And it's still got that trademark Prime atmosphere, and some of the worlds still have that great world-based storytelling. Skytown is up there with Phendrana as one of the most beautiful and atmospheric places in any game, in my opinion. The game's big gimmick and namesake is the Hyper Mode, which lets you spend a big chunk of your health to basically enter Superpower Mode. I'm kinda torn about this because on the one hand, it really demonstrates Samus's struggles through gameplay. As you get more Hyper Mode power-ups, you see Samus become more and more monstrous, almost resembling her dark counterpart by the end. But, on the other hand, it does make a lot of otherwise intimidating encounters feel really, really easy. In fact, the game as a whole is really easy because of Hyper Mode. I feel that Retro should have added more incentives to avoid using Hyper Mode. Maybe give the player a bad ending if they use it too much by the final boss. I don't know. But it gives the player an easy way out of many otherwise difficult situations, and the game lacked challenge as a result. It also has a lot of really gimmicky Wii Remote Controls. This was one of the early titles for the Wii, and you can really tell that because we see a lot of strange, unnecessary moments. There are a lot of switches that require weird gestures to use, and they feel really out of place. I can see why they're there, but still, they kinda make you scratch your head today. With all of that said though, Corruption is still great. The worlds are far more interesting than they were in Echoes, and it definitely has the best characters in the trilogy, along with the best cinematic flair, if you're into that kind of thing. And that's the Trilogy. It goes on sale on Thursday starting at $10, and for these 3 games, that's a hell of a deal. I don't think even Steam has had a deal that great since they offered the original Deus Ex for $2.50. So yes, if you have a Wii U, pick it up straight away. And if you don't have a Wii U, what the hell are you waiting for? It's got Bayonetta, it's got Smash Brothers, it's got the best Mario Kart in years, it's got one of the best Super Mario games in years, and now it's got my favorite game of all time on it. If you don't have one, it's really high time you do. Come on, man.